The council chamber shimmered with walls of translucent alloy, a vast dome that overlooked the scarred surface of Trassel Prime. 5 alien empires had gathered there, each delegation seated behind their crest of authority, each posture radiating disdain. At the center of the circle stood a single human in faded combat fatigues, his face half hidden beneath the brim of a battered cap. "Is this it?" hissed Admiral Serex of the T-Charwynan Combine, his voice like grinding stone. "This, mammal, is Earth's contribution to our war effort." Mason Hale did not glance up. He remained motionless, hands loose at his sides, boots planted firmly on the polished floor. The insult slid past him like a breeze over stone. The human envoy shifted uneasily and spoke. "Staff Sergeant Mason Hale has." "Enough." The shrill interruption came from Chancellor Voleth of the Zyrith hegemony, her 8 limbs coiling in irritation. "Your world begs for admittance to the Coalition and sends us one soldier wielding primitive kinetic weaponry. We requested divisions, fleets, orbital firepower, not some relic of ancient warfare." Hale's jaw flexed once, but his eyes stayed fixed on the floor. He could still hear the wind moving through the long grass of home, a quiet whisper far louder than the room's chorus of derision. "I'm not here for your approval," he said finally. The words were soft, but carried an edge that stilled even the most curious whispers. Serex leaned forward, his spined crest rattling. "Then why are you here, human?" "To do a job." The ambassador's cheeks colored, embarrassed by Hale's bluntness. But Hale wasn't trying to impress anyone. The war beyond the council chamber wasn't interested in ceremony. General Calith of the Vereen Dominion rose from his seat, towering nearly 3 times Hale's height. His armor gleamed with inlaid gold, ceremonial and useless. "You cannot possibly mean to deploy this, marksman on Trassel's front line. That battlefield devours entire regiments." "It only takes 1 bullet," Hale said, still calm. A ripple of laughter rolled through the chamber. Dry, hollow, cruel. Hale's gaze shifted at last, lifting to meet Calith's gleaming eyes. "You laugh because you don't understand. That's fine. I don't need you to." The ambassador cleared his throat, desperate to steer the conversation away from further embarrassment. "The sergeant's role is advisory, a demonstration of Earth's specialized warfare doctrine. Consider it. Consider it irrelevant," Voleth snapped. "The enemy outnumbers us by millions. You offer a single trigger puller." Hale's lips twitched, almost a smile, though it lacked warmth. He had heard every variation of that argument before. Before Onbar Ridge, before Kunar Province, before the rooftop in Basra where 1 breath and 1 squeeze had ended the battle hours before it began. He didn't need them to understand. He needed an open field of fire and enough time to do the work. Outside the council dome, the ground shuddered with distant artillery. Trassel Prime's forests were being reduced to craters as enemy walkers advanced across the ridgelines. Coalition forces had been losing ground for weeks. Every counterattack blunted by overwhelming numbers and energy weapons that carved through armor like wet paper. Hale studied the tactical display projected in midair. Enemy formations were clustered, confident in their numerical advantage. Overconfident. Every commander in that room saw chaos and defeat on the map. Hale saw geometry, wind currents, firing lanes. "Where's the observation post?" he asked, cutting across their debate. A pause followed. None of the aliens seemed prepared to answer him directly, but Calith finally gestured toward the northern sector of the projection. "There, Ridge 94. Is lost ground. The enemy holds every approach." "Good," Hale said, and began walking toward the exit. "Good," Serex repeated, his voice incredulous. "You march to your death, human. Perhaps your species thinks martyrdom is admirable, but we do not waste soldiers so carelessly." Hale didn't bother to reply. He was already running the checklist in his head: range, elevation, humidity, temperature, potential fallback positions. His rifle case rested against his hip, a weight he knew as well as his own heartbeat. By the time he reached the staging platform, the chamber behind him had erupted into heated arguments, accusations hurled between empires about resources and strategies. None of them mattered. The war outside didn't pause for politics. The transport shuttle waiting for him was cramped, built for alien physiology, but he wedged himself between the protruding control struts and powered up the ignition. The pilot, a small-scale Irix named Chelk, cast a wary glance over his shoulder. "You really going up there alone?" "Don't see anyone lining up to join me," Hale replied. Chelk chittered nervously, claws tapping the controls. "Place is crawling with enemy sensor drones. No cover. They'll see you coming before you even touch ground. They can't hit what they can't see." Chelk gave a sound halfway between disbelief and pity. "Your funeral." The shuttle lifted off, engines whining as it pierced the cloud layer and skimmed low over the treetops. Through the canopy glass, Hale could see the distant flashes of plasma strikes ripping through the horizon. He closed his eyes for a moment and slowed his breathing. Inhale, count 4. Hold, count 2. Exhale, count 6. Again, the rhythm was older than war. The shuttle banked sharply, avoiding a crackling lance of enemy fire from below. Chelk cursed in his native tongue and leveled the craft, wings folding slightly for descent. "There," the pilot muttered, pointing toward a jagged ridge that jutted like broken teeth from the landscape. "Observation post 94, or what's left of it." Smoke curled from shattered bunkers, the remains of coalition defenders scattered among the rocks. The enemy hadn't even bothered to strip the bodies. They expected no counterattack. Hale snapped the release on his harness and hefted the rifle case. "Stay low until I signal." "I'm not sticking around for your signal, human," Chelk hissed. "This airspace is suicide." "Then just stay alive long enough to tell them I got started." Chelk barked something unintelligible but flared the landing skids anyway, hovering just long enough for Hale to drop to the ground. The shuttle immediately clawed skyward, weaving away like a frightened insect. Hale knelt in the dirt and took stock. The wind smelled of ozone and scorched vegetation. The ridge's eastern slope offered natural elevation but little concealment. Still, it was enough. He ran a quick sweep with his optics. Enemy patrols moving lazily, complacent, not expecting resistance. Good. He unpacked the rifle with practiced efficiency. Bolt assembly, scope calibration, suppressor attachment, each motion executed without hesitation. The weapon wasn't beautiful. It wasn't sleek or alien or elegant. It was steel and polymer and deliberate craftsmanship, a tool refined over centuries for one purpose. As he chambered the first round, the weight settled comfortably in his hands. He scanned the far side of the valley. Enemy command units clustered around mobile shield generators, their officers visible even from this distance by the way subordinates deferred to their gestures. Hale adjusted for range. 2.3 kilometers. Wind from the west, 6 knots. Humidity higher than Earth's standard, bullet drop slightly more pronounced. He breathed again. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. His finger rested against the trigger, but he didn't fire. Not yet. Timing mattered more than impatience. He watched the officer's gesture, direct, reposition. He waited for the one moment when command shifted focus away from caution and into overconfidence. A whisper of static broke into his ear, Chelk's voice faint. "You still alive down there?" "Still working." Against that many, Hale lined the crosshairs over the enemy commander's cranial node, exhaled halfway, and let the silence stretch. "Yeah," he murmured, the rifle stock pressed firm against his shoulder. Against that many. He eased the trigger back, feeling the tension break like a thin thread. The shot was silent, suppressed to a muted cough, but its impact would roar across the battlefield soon enough. The enemy commander dropped in an instant, collapsing like a marionette with its strings cut. Around him, the command cadre froze in confusion, their attention snapping toward the distant ridgeline. Hale didn't flinch. His breathing stayed slow, the rifle already recoiling back into his shoulder for a follow-up shot. The second officer barely had time to issue an order before another muted crack reached him too late. He crumpled beside his leader, and the cluster of alien troops erupted into chaotic motion, half diving for cover, half scanning the horizon for the source. Hale shifted slightly, adjusting his body position witout ever taking his cheek off the stock. Every shot was measured, each target selected with meticulous care. Communications officers, tactical coordinators, anyone issuing commands. For shots, 5, 6. Each one landed with surgical precision, and the once confident unit had devolved into shouting and frantic scattering, their formation unraveling before they understood what was happening. Enemy command structure is splintering. Chelk's voice came faintly over the comm. What are you doing down there? They look like they're being picked apart by ghosts. Hale's reply was steady, almost conversational, taking away their eyes first, then their hands. He recentered the crosshairs on a soldier, attempting to relay orders through a glowing wrist pad. Another exhale, another squeeze. The alien spun backward, the device clattering against the rocky ground. The soldiers nearby looked around wildly, unable to pinpoint where death was coming from. To Hale, it was all geometry and rhythm. Target, wind, range, trigger. Each calculation arrived in sequence, layered over instinct honed by years of repetition. War was chaos to most, but to him, it was a grid of angles and probabilities waiting to be solved. By the 10th shot, the alien formation had fragmented completely. Small clusters broke away, retreating toward the rear lines, while others crouched behind low cover that offered no real protection. Hale finally lowered the rifle just long enough to glance at the horizon. He could see faint ripples of energy where enemy artillery platforms were powering up, preparing to level the ridge he occupied. He whispered to himself, "They think I'll stay still." The rifle was slung across his back in one fluid motion as he packed up his position. Loose shell casings were swept into a pouch, bipod collapsed, optics secured. No trace left behind. Not even footprints thanks to the rocky slope. As he moved laterally across the ridge, staying below the skyline, he could hear faint shrieks of frustration echoing from the valley floor. Even without understanding their language, he recognized desperation. Chuck's voice returned, jittery and nervous. "You should pull out now. Their orbital support will burn that ridge clean." "They'll waste ammunition on empty rocks," Hale replied, sliding into a crevice that offered natural concealment. He unfolded the bipod again and settled in, letting the world slow back down to the steady metronome of his breathing. In the valley below, a new officer had taken control, rallying troops with exaggerated gestures. Their forces began repositioning, clearly intending to rush the ridgeline in overwhelming numbers. Hale's crosshairs drifted lazily toward the officer's head. He held it there, but didn't fire. Timing mattered more than the kill itself. The longer the enemy believed they could fix him in place, the more resources they would commit, the more gaps they would leave elsewhere. His finger eased off the trigger. He shifted aim instead toward one of the artillery platforms in the distance. The shot would be difficult. 3 kilometers, gusting wind between ridges, moving target. He let his breath flow out evenly, emptying his lungs to the point of stillness, and squeezed. The round struck the platform's energy core. A bright bloom of white light followed, the explosion tearing through the alien cannon and sending shrapnel flying across the valley floor. The shockwave rippled through the ranks below, scattering soldiers like insects exposed to sudden sunlight. From orbit, the coalition fleet undoubtedly saw the detonation, but Hale wasn't thinking about the political consequences. He was already moving again, relocating to his third position before counterfire could lock onto his previous location. Chuck's voice carried a note of awe this time. "You just disabled one of their primary guns. By yourself. Do you realize what that means?" "Yeah," Hale muttered. "Means they're mad." The shuttle pilot gave a short, breathless laugh. "I think I'm starting to understand why your people brought you." Hale didn't answer. He was too busy recalculating angles and scanning for the next priority target. Minutes stretched into hours as the duel continued. Hale never staying in one spot long enough to be bracketed, the enemy throwing more and more troops into the valley in futile attempts to root him out. Each time they concentrated forces, Hale's bullets found the individuals directing the movement, leaving the rest to flounder in disarray. In the coalition command center orbiting above, The gathered alien leaders stared at the shifting tactical map in stunned silence. Admiral Sarex leaned closer, his voice low. Is that one human doing all of this? The ambassador swallowed hard. Yes, Admiral. Calith's crest twitched in disbelief. Your sniper is dismantling an entire army's chain of command. With a rifle. Just one bullet at a time, the ambassador replied quietly. Back on the ridge, Hale paused briefly to sip from his canteen, the motion practiced and unhurried. His muscles remained loose, not tense. Fatigue was the enemy of accuracy, and he'd learned long ago to manage his own limits as carefully as ammunition. Through his scope, he noticed subtle changes in the enemy's behavior. Their troops were spreading wider now, minimizing exposure, abandoning tight formations that had once seemed unbreakable. Even from this distance, Hale could sense their caution. Fear had a way of radiating outward, unifying even disparate species into the same primal response. Hide. That was fine. Fear slowed movement, and slow targets were easier to predict. As the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long across the valley, Hale found himself adjusting his optics for dim light. The alien soldiers had activated glowing visors, unaware of how perfectly those illuminated shapes painted targets against the darkening terrain. He took 3 more shots, each punctuating the silence with a faint suppressed cough. Chulk broke in again, quieter this time. Command wants to know how long you plan to keep this up. They think your position's unsustainable. Hale scanned the horizon for any sign of enemy reinforcements. Nothing yet. Long enough, he said simply. You don't sound worried. Worrying doesn't change the math. He spotted movement near the far tree line. A column of armored walkers advancing cautiously, scanning with sensor arrays. That would complicate things. Hale noted their speed, trajectory, and distance before shifting his aim to the lead vehicle's viewport. He fired. The round struck true, ricocheting inside the cockpit and disabling its driver. The walker staggered sideways and toppled, colliding with its neighbor in a tangle of limbs and armor plating. The remaining machines halted, their sensors recalibrating in futile attempts to locate the sniper. Another shot followed, and another. Within minutes, half the column was immobilized, and the rest had retreated behind the trees. By now, the valley floor was littered with broken machines and scattered troops too disoriented to organize an effective assault. Hale exhaled slowly and rested his cheek against the stock for a moment, letting the tension bleed away. The day's light had almost vanished, and with night came colder winds, sharper risks, and fresh opportunities. The enemy would adapt. They always did, but Hale had no intention of letting them regain their footing. He checked the chamber, confirmed his remaining rounds, and spoke into the comm with calm certainty. Tell your command center to start planning their advance. They won't get a better window than this. Chulk hesitated. You mean they could retake the valley right now? Hale's eyes stayed on the scope, tracking one last officer darting between wrecked vehicles in a desperate bid to regroup stragglers. They could, he said softly, just before pulling the trigger. The figure dropped. Hale descended the ridge under the thin veil of dusk, his boots silent over loose gravel and brittle pine needles. The valley below, once a hive of activity, had become eerily quiet. Smoke drifted in curling ribbons from the shattered artillery platform, and the scent of ozone clung to the cold air like an unwelcome guest. His rifle rested diagonally across his back, scope glinting faintly in the dying light, but his hands were loose at his sides, prepared to draw in a heartbeat. He wasn't complacent, only calculating. Chulk's voice buzzed faintly through the comm, less strained than before, but tinged with something resembling reverence. Ground scans confirm minimal activity. You've got stragglers, scattered squads, no cohesion. It's like they're waiting for someone to tell them what to do, and no one's left to give orders. That's the point, Hale muttered, eyes narrowing as he swept the valley with measured patience. Even in their fractured state, an enemy this numerous could lash out unpredictably, and he knew better than to mistake silence for safety. He crouched beside the charred husk of a downed walker, running calloused fingers over its still warm armor. Alien engineering, sleek curves, iridescent plating, ruined by one precisely placed round. He didn't linger on the handiwork, simply noted the entry wound, the shattered circuitry, then moved on. Everything he did was habit layered over discipline. No pride, no gloating, just efficiency. A distant metallic clatter caught his attention. He froze, one knee in the dirt, letting the sound echo against stone outcroppings before triangulating its origin. 200 meters east, near the remnants of a command tent. His hand slid to the sidearm holstered on his thigh, drawing it silently while his other hand unclipped the rifle from its sling. He set the larger weapon against the walker hull, preferring maneuverability for close encounters. Through a jagged tear in the tent's fabric, movement flickered, slight, deliberate, cautious. Whoever it was hadn't bolted, meaning either discipline or desperation. Hale circled wide, keeping his silhouette low against the scorched ground. As he closed the distance, the figure inside became clearer. Alien soldier, armor dented and smeared with dust, weapon slung limply at his side. Not dead, not surrendering, but not hunting either. Hale's finger rested lightly along the trigger guard of his pistol. "You planning to use that rifle?" His voice was calm but firm, loud enough to carry into the tent without startling the soldier into firing blindly. The alien jerked slightly, mandibles clicking together in what Hale assumed was alarm. It hesitated, glanced at its weapon, then back at the open flap. Hale didn't move closer, didn't raise his gun, just watched. "You've got two choices," Hale said, voice even. "You walk out and drop it, or you try something stupid, and this ends quick. Your call." For a long moment, only the hum of distant wind filled the space between them. Then, slowly, the alien eased the rifle to the ground and stepped out, hands raised. Its eyes, 4 of them, two large and two recessed above, locked on Hale's. Chuck's voice cut in, a whisper now. "Wait, you're taking prisoners." "Information," Hale murmured, still holding the alien's gaze. "Always worth more than another body." The soldier's breathing was rapid, chest plates rising and falling in staccato rhythm. Hale gestured with his free hand. "Far side of the tent. Sit." The alien obeyed, lowering itself cross-legged in the dirt. Hale didn't approach immediately, only adjusted his angle, so his weapon remained level, but his posture didn't scream threat. Fear alone could be counterproductive. "You speak Terran?" he asked after a beat. A pause, then a rasping reply in accented but clear standard. "Enough to understand." "Good. Then answer this. Why send so many troops for a single valley? What's buried here that's worth dying for?" The alien's mandibles flexed, a sign Hale interpreted as either indecision or stubbornness. Silence stretched. Hale waited, patient as stone. Eventually, the soldier's shoulders sagged. "Not valley," it admitted reluctantly. "Pathway. Supply artery to forward bastion." "Lose this," it trailed off but didn't need to finish. The implication was obvious. Hale's eyes flicked toward the horizon where the main coalition encampment would be preparing its next move. He tapped his comm twice, signaling Chelk without words. "You hear that?" "Loud and clear," Chelk responded. "Command just reclassified your valley as critical ground. They're dispatching armored columns to secure it. ETA in 90 minutes. "That's assuming I keep it open," Hale replied. He studied the alien soldier for a moment longer. It stared back defiantly now, as if speaking had reignited some ember of pride. Hale respected that more than he let on. "All right," Hale said finally. "You can sit here until your people come collect you, or you can start walking west and hope they don't mistake you for me and blast you on sight. Up to you." The alien blinked all 4 eyes slowly. "You will not kill me." Hale holstered his pistol in one smooth motion and picked up his rifle. "Not today." He turned and left the soldier behind without another glance, weaving back through debris toward the high ridges on the opposite side of the valley. Every step was measured for speed and stealth, balancing haste with the knowledge that enemy scouts could still be lurking. The higher he climbed, the more of the battlefield came into view. From this vantage, the scattered remains of the alien army looked like a painter's violent abstract. splintered armor glinting, blackened craters smoldering, the occasional distant spark of failing machinery flickering against the encroaching night. Coalition reinforcements are less than an hour out, Chalk said. They'll expect covering fire to punch through the remaining pockets of resistance. You staying topside for Overwatch? Negative, Hale answered. I'm going deeper. Deeper? Where? The ridgeline east of the main artery, Hale clarified. They'll regroup behind natural cover, thinking they're safe from direct assault. I'll make sure they're not. He picked up his pace, boots crunching softly over loose rock, heart rate steady despite the exertion. Adrenaline didn't rule him. It sharpened him. Halfway up the next slope, Hale paused to scan with the scope. He spotted a cluster of aliens gathering broken equipment, attempting to establish some sort of fallback point. No visible leader. He'd taken care of those, but determination still flickered in their body language. They weren't quitting. Good, he thought. Quitting soldiers stayed hidden. Determined ones exposed themselves, trying to salvage control. He found a flat slab of stone near the crest of the ridge and settled into a prone position. His movements were fluid, unhurried. Bipod locked, stock snugged into his shoulder, cheek settling naturally into place. He became part of the terrain, indistinguishable from rock and shadow. Through the scope, he tracked one alien hauling a heavy power cell toward a damaged comms relay. Hill didn't fire immediately. He let the soldier complete the task, watching carefully to map where each individual moved, which paths they favored, which routes left them vulnerable. Knowledge now meant less guesswork later. Chalk's voice returned, quieter, almost hesitant. You don't ever stop, do you? You've been at this since dawn. War doesn't care if you're tired, Hale replied without looking away from the scope. The first shot came only after he'd drawn a mental grid of the entire fallback area. It struck the comms relay's power conduit, erupting in a shower of sparks that sent the soldiers scrambling in disarray. He shifted targets smoothly, firing twice more in quick succession, one round disabling a heavy weapon emplacement, the second severing a cable that tethered a portable shield generator. By the time the aliens realized they were under attack again, two of their defensive assets were already useless, and their cover had become a death trap illuminated by arcs of electricity. Hale stayed prone, invisible, letting their confusion work against them. Every step they took exposed a new angle. Every attempt to regroup put them exactly where he wanted them. When the last power cell detonated in a chain reaction, the explosion silhouetted the survivors against the rocky walls. Hale didn't waste ammunition. He didn't need to. The destruction had achieved what was necessary. Further delay, further disarray. Above, the night had deepened, stars emerging one by one against a canvas of indigo. Among them, the faint pinpricks of the coalition fleet burned bright, poised to descend as soon as the valley cleared. Chalk broke the silence with a tone of reluctant admiration. You're buying them time. All of them. And you're doing it alone. Hale finally eased away from the rifle, muscle stiff but mind sharp. Not alone, he said. Someone has to see what's happening down here. Then, maybe next time, they won't underestimate us. He dismantled the rifle with deliberate efficiency, stowing each component in its place, no wasted motion. When he finally stood, the valley below was still alight with small fires, and the alien soldiers were retreating farther into the darkness, afraid to linger where death seemed to come from nowhere. Hale slung the rifle over his shoulder and began the climb toward his next vantage point. The battle wasn't over, but the ground was shifting, tilting inexorably in humanity's favor. As he reached the ridge's peak and looked down at the twisting artery below, the very path the enemy had fought so fiercely to hold, he keyed the comm one last time. Tell them the road's open, he said. The first convoy broke atmosphere an hour later, streaking down through the dense clouds with the unmistakable signature of coalition dropships in combat formation. Hale lay flat on his stomach at the ridgeline, one eye to his scope, tracking each descent with professional detachment. He didn't need to fire now. His work was done. But watching the reinforcements come in, their bellies lined with artillery and gunship escorts, felt like the culmination of a promise he had never voiced out loud. Chalk's voice returned over the comm. static punctuating each word as the signal bounced through interference left by the destroyed comms relay. First wave is 2 minutes from touchdown. They'll start unloading armor and clearing debris. Command wants confirmation that the eastern corridor is secure. Hale shifted slightly, bringing the valley into a wide-angle view. Eastern corridor's clean. The remaining enemy elements have retreated beyond effective range. They won't contest the landing zone unless they get stupid. You sound certain. I've been watching them, Hale said simply. He adjusted the scope to follow the shadowy movement of alien soldiers far to the north. Their formations were scattered and ragged, and their discipline had eroded. Where before they had moved with mechanical precision, now they looked fractured, like shards of glass struggling to fit back together. One alien paused and glanced toward Hale's position, though it was far too distant to truly see him. For a fleeting second, he wondered if it was the same soldier he had spared earlier. He dismissed the thought. It didn't matter. The dropships touched down in controlled unison, landing struts kicking up a haze of dust and loose rock. Ramps dropped, disgorging squads of armored infantry who moved with swift, methodical efficiency, sweeping the valley in overlapping fields of fire. Behind them, tracked vehicles rolled out, their barrels scanning the ridges for any sign of ambush. Hale pushed himself to his knees, breaking the outline he'd held for hours, and Chelk's voice immediately sharpened. "You moving out?" "Heading back to the artery," Hale replied, slinging his rifle. "Someone's got to mark safe paths through the rubble before the heavy haulers get stuck in choke points. You realize they got drones for that. Drones can't tell you where a sniper would hide." The ridge descent was slow and careful, not because he was tired, though exhaustion pressed at the edges of his awareness, but because he knew the battlefield well enough to respect it even after the shooting stopped. Loose stone, hidden trip mines, unexploded ordnance. Any of it could undo hours of success with a single misstep. Halfway down, a trio of coalition soldiers intercepted him, their rifles half-raised until their helmet HUDs pinged his identifier. "Sniper Hale?" the lead soldier asked, voice muffled behind his visor. "That's me. Command wants you at the forward operations tent once the area is locked down. Said your priority debrief. Tell Command I'll be there when I'm done keeping you alive." The soldier hesitated, then nodded. Understood. They moved on, and Hale continued his descent, boots leaving shallow prints in the soot-covered earth. As he reached the valley floor, the aftermath of his earlier work was starkly visible. Craters carved out by precision strikes lined the roadway. Burnt-out husks of alien walkers lay in twisted heaps, and the metallic tang of scorched circuitry lingered heavy in the air. He walked past one of the destroyed shield generators, its once luminous panels dulled to a cracked black. Nearby, a coalition tech knelt to salvage usable fragments, glancing up briefly as Hale passed, but saying nothing. Recognition needed no words here. Roads partially blocked near Grid 12. Chelk reported, overlaying a map on a Hale's visor. "If you're heading there, watch for unstable rock formations. Scans show structural weakness from the blast patterns." Noted. Hale veered toward the indicated grid, stepping over shattered alien weaponry. He spotted a half-buried plasma rifle, its grip slick with residue, and kicked it further into the dirt without stopping. No sense in souvenirs. When he reached Grid 12, he crouched low to inspect the collapsed pathway. Large slabs of stone had tumbled across the route, forming jagged walls with narrow gaps in between. Perfect choke points for ambushes if the enemy decided to circle back. He tapped his comm twice. "Send a demolition crew. Clear this fast, but stay alert. This is exactly where they'll try to stall you if they're feeling vindictive." "On it," Chelk said. By the time Hale looped back toward the landing zone, dusk had deepened into full night, and the valley was lit by the glow of portable flood lamps mounted on tripods. The harsh white light cast long, sharp shadows that danced across broken machinery and fragmented armor. The arriving troops had erected a temporary perimeter, shield arrays humming softly, and engineers worked in tight clusters to stabilize power conduits. Hale stepped through the perimeter's checkpoint, nodding to the guard who waved him in. He ignored the forward operations tent for now and instead climbed atop a flat boulder overlooking the entire staging area. From here, he could see the scale of a human presence asserting itself over the battlefield. Dozens of vehicles, rows of troops, crates of supplies stacked with neat precision. Organized chaos, but with direction. His scope lay idle on his rifle, and used for the first time in hours. He didn't need magnification to see that the enemy had fully withdrawn. The distant ridges were silent and dark, devoid of movement. Chalk's voice softened, no longer brisk or clinical. You've bought them more than just time. You've given them breathing room, a chance to fortify, to move forward. Hale let the words hang for a moment, his eyes tracing the glowing artery they had fought so fiercely to control. It snaked through the valley like a vein of molten light now, shielded, guarded alive. War isn't about breathing room, Hale said eventually. It's about making sure the other side never gets to catch their breath. He hopped down from the boulder and finally strode toward the operations tent. Inside, a holographic map hovered above the central table, displaying real-time updates of troop placements. Officers clustered around it, arguing quietly over supply lines and contingency routes. One of them noticed Hale and gestured sharply. "Sniper Hale, over here." He approached, hands resting lightly on his belt, posture relaxed but alert. The officer expanded the hologram to reveal 3 glowing enemy icons north of their current position. "We're picking up regrouping activity here. If they manage to dig in, we'll be looking at another prolonged siege." "They won't," Hale said simply. "And you're confident because—" Hale leaned forward, marking the terrain on the map with quick taps. "Because they're pulling back to ground they don't know as well as they think they do. Steep inclines, loose cover, and no clear retreat paths. They'll set up camp, but they'll be boxed in before they realize it." The officer stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine. We'll redirect recon to confirm your analysis." Hale straightened, already turning toward the exit. "You're not staying? I've got work to finish." Outside, the wind had shifted, colder now, carrying with it the faint scent of pine from the untouched forests beyond the battlefield. Hale paused briefly, drawing in a slow breath before starting toward the northern ridges. He didn't hurry. The alien forces were retreating, but they weren't broken yet. Somewhere out there, commanders were already drafting retaliatory strategies, searching for weak points, vowing to reclaim what they had lost. And when they came back, they would expect brute force, massed firepower, and direct confrontation. They wouldn't expect him. He disappeared into the shadows of the ridge, his figure blending seamlessly into the jagged rocks and sparse trees, a ghost fading from sight. Behind him, the valley remained brightly lit, humming with activity, human voices cutting through the alien silence like a declaration. But Hale didn't look back. He didn't need to. His part in this battle had ended, but the war was far from over, and there would always be another ridge, another vantage point, another target who thought they were safe until they weren't. High above, the coalition fleet's lights shimmered faintly against the endless dark of space, silent witnesses to the shifting tide below.